Good evening, everyone. I am calling to order the May 19th, 2025 meeting of the Poquoson Planning Commission. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pray. As we begin this meeting, we pause to reflect the responsibility that we share. May our words be guided by civility, our actions by respect, and our decisions by a desire to promote peace. Let us work together with open minds and steady hearts, seeking solutions that serve the common good. May our efforts today help build a stronger, more understanding community for all. Amen. Mr. Gossinger, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Commissioner Hartley.
He's absent.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Hirsch.
Here.
Commissioner Yeager.
Here.
Commissioner Armentrout.
He's absent.
Vice Chairman Geisinger.
Here.
Chairwoman Schott.
Here.
Chairwoman Quorum is present.
Thank you for doing that. We're going to begin our meeting tonight, and we are going to start off with the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes, both from the March 17th meeting. One is from the work session, and one is from the regular session. Does anybody have any comments on either of these minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the work session minutes for March 17th, 2025?
I move to approve the work session minutes from March 17th, 2025.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hirsch.
Aye.
Commissioner Yeager.
Aye.
Commissioner Geisinger.
Abstain.
Chairman Schott.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Next, we're going to approve our regular session minutes from March 17th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion we approve the regular session minutes for March 17th, 2025.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hirsch.
Aye.
Commissioner Yeager.
Aye.
Commissioner Vice Chairman Geisinger.
Abstain.
Chairman Schott.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. So we're going to open up our audience for visitors now. This is a time when any person present may approach the podium and speak on any matter that he or she wishes to address the Planning Commission about. I do pause and just state that we do have no public hearings on the agenda for this evening. However, we do have two new business items on the agenda. If you wish to speak on either of those, please come forward and share your comments. As a reminder, item number 1, which is the reconsideration of the conditional use permit, has already had a duly conducted public hearing with that being closed. And if you have new information, as I understand from the City Council that there are 2 new conditions regarding this, we would invite you to come and speak during those, during this time regarding those new conditions. So, I'd like to open that up. Would anybody like to speak regarding any of the items on? Yes? Hi.
I'm Bob Small. I'm here on behalf of my mother, Shirley Small, 3 Rochambeau Drive.
Okay.
I was here previously in opposition to the Shaw application for the pickleball court. I have submitted materials that I think were emailed to everybody, and I'd like to just review that and just the biggest difference between the last planning commission meeting and now, is that Carlos and Carol Perez at 6 Rochambeau Drive, who are directly adjacent to the pickleball court, have now filed an objection. And the letter filing the objection explained that they did not know the extent to which it was going to be built. So now that they've learned all of that, they object as well. That then means that all the neighbors on Rochambeau Drive have objected to the installation of the pickleball court for whatever reasons they deemed appropriate, but the fact is they objected. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that when I did research on this originally, although I knew that noise with pickleball courts was a problem and that had led to litigation and had led to issues that you all are considering, I didn't realize how extensive it was till I started to actually dig into it and do the research. In addition, between the time of the city council meeting and now, I did some further research and I've addressed those at a cover memo. But the biggest issues that I raised in the new articles I've attached are that it's the ping of the pickleball, it's the paddle hitting the ball that's the problem, it's the impulse noise that's the real problem. And I've cited in my memo the fact that one of the articles concludes with the idea that pickleball courts are incompatible with neighborhoods as a result. The other thing is that it's highly impulsive, and you've got people now, when we were before the planning commission before, Mr. Shaw said that it might be just him and his wife playing pickleball in the morning, a little bit in the evening. Now that's expanded. They have friends in York County where they now play pickleball, and they expect to have those friends be invited over, and there might be as many as 8 people at a time, 4 people playing pickleball at a time. And the bottom line is that it's not acceptable to allow this type of court in a front yard in Poquoson. And if you look at the photograph of the Shaw's home, they elected to build their house very, very far back on their lot. So it gave them a very narrow backyard, and they put a swimming pool and some other things back there. So now they're asking to put a pickleball court in their front yard. And no matter how you describe it, it is the front yard. The problem is that it's only about 60 feet by their own admission from the Perez's residence. And so Mr. Shaw at the city council meeting attempted to produce evidence that this wasn't that noisy. And he had a meter that he took around and got some readings, and his readings were in the 50s and 60s. All the articles that I've read, the articles I've produced to you in the past and now, say that those numbers are exceedingly low for pickleball. They don't take into account the noise of the people playing and the people. It's an aggressive sport, and if people are really into it, do we really expect them to play silently? No, we don't. And so the bottom line is that given the impulse noise, given the overall noise, it's a problem. The next thing is the lighting. Lighting is additive. That means that now there's one street light on Rochambeau Drive, and there are lights that some people have exterior to their houses. But now we're going to add 2 15-foot tall lamp poles with lights to add more light at the end of Rochambeau Drive at night. At the city council, they were saying, well, would you cut back the time you would play, maybe not do it as late or whatever. But the minute we start having to make those types of conditions in order to make it fit, it only proves it's not the right thing to do. When my parents bought this property, when the other people in Rochambeau and Valmore Estates bought their properties, they bought it knowing what the restrictions were. And in this case, what the Shaws respectfully are trying to add is something that they personally want. It's not something they have to have. They've admitted they play pickleball court now in York County. And I can give you 2 examples of how things have been on Rochambeau Drive. The neighbor at 1 Rochambeau Drive, when they bought the house from the previous owners, Colonel and Mrs. Rocky, he is a car aficionado, so they wanted to build a huge 5-car garage. And he came to my mother and said, Shirley, what would you think? And my mother said, I wouldn't like it, and here's why, and she gave him a list. There is no garage there, because he listened to the concerns of a neighbor, and he didn't build it. When my father had cancer, and we had to install a handicap ramp at the house, we didn't install it in the front yard on purpose, because we concluded that to do that would ruin the view of Rochambeau Drive, would ruin the ambiance of Rochambeau Drive. So we have it installed on the backside of the house. Again, we were looking out for what is best for Rochambeau Drive and the neighborhood. Many of the things that Mr. Shaw has cited are ChatGPT. I don't know the validity of them. All I can say is that the articles I've cited, and in particular the chart, which I included here, which talks about devaluation of properties, is done by a professional pickleball player. So he's not a pickleball hater. And what he says is that pickleball courts adjacent to residential properties dramatically affect value.
So, Mr. Shaw, what we do here is we look at what meets our zoning ordinance, not the adjacent property and how, that's what we're looking at.
Sure, and it's, I'm Mr. Small, that's.
Mr. Small, sorry.
That's okay. The point is this, though. As a planning commission, if you look at giving an exception to a zoning ordinance, you do need to look at its impact on adjoining properties. That's the very reason we got notice.
Right.
And what I'm saying to you is that the impact on the adjoining properties here can result in a devaluation of those properties. Now, for the Shaws, if they find someone who wants to buy a house pickleball court, they may do fine when they sell their house. But the literature that I've cited shows otherwise. So, you know, it's a want, not a need. It's adding lighting at night that's unnecessary. And let me just say, when you walk out of my mother's house on Rochambeau Drive at night, it is silent. And it is generally dark except for the one street light. It's a really bucolic place to be, and they bought a house on a dead-end street for that reason, so that they would not be bothered by things. So to have a pickleball game going, whether it's grandchildren, family, friends, is just not the right thing to do in their front yard. And the new conditions that they've added, where they will try to paint the court to match the ground, I'm not even sure how that gets done. And the other one is to plant more trees. That's not going to eliminate the effect of additional lighting. It's not going to eliminate noise. And it's not going to eliminate the impulse noise. And so, like I said, to think that people are going to play pickleball and they're not going to get excited, they're not going to get, you know, aggressive in a nice way, but, you know, they're not going to talk, they're not going to trash talk, that's, you know, that's just not realistic. So with all due respect, and especially to the Shaws, it's just not a good idea for this planning commission to set a precedence of allowing a pickleball court in anybody's front yard in Poquoson. So I would again ask that even with the additional information that's been provided, you all vote to not, just stick with your previous decision and vote not to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all have a great night.
You too.
Evening, Greg Shaw, 8 Rochambeau Drive, applicant and owner. Basically, the first time that we came to you, the reason it came back to you is the fact that I was blindsided by the preparation of 125 sheets of paper that Mr. Small presented. I wasn't prepared because I wasn't expecting that much data and that variety of data. And quite frankly, I wasn't expecting pickleball to be on trial, because it's not about pickleball, it's about, does my side yard, that is a totally different piece of property than a normal front yard, that is not on a residential street. My driveway comes off the end And so it turned out to be, let's put pickleball on trial, and kind of got away from the actual question is my side yard equal to or different than a normal front yard, and is it more like someone's side yard or backyard? So even though pickleball went on trial, I still addressed the noise, the property value, and the lighting. And I want to just summarize that. I hope some of you guys had a chance to actually watch the video playback of the city council meeting, because that way you saw my presentation, so I don't have to spend an hour like I did with the city council. I'm just going to hit the highlights of the summary of that. The conclusion is, number one, bordering property owners. At the time, there was no opposition. I walked through the project with all three bordering pieces of property owners. Those three people did not object once I explained it. Later on, Mr. Small brought a notebook of data to these neighbors and presented in a very misinformation type of approach. He misrepresented a lot of that data. So under property owner value, he brought a realtor, called him an expert. He is not an expert. He is a realtor that had an opinion, that read the same article that Mr. Small read, one article published that talked about values. Every single article and piece of data in his notebook is from an application that had multiple courts in a neighborhood. Not a single private court on a single private piece of land. It was in the center of a large development or areas with no protection lot, in which they played multiple hours a day, all day long. So apples to oranges, there is no concrete evidence that the value of property drops with a single private court in somebody's yard. As far as noise is concerned, this noise does not exceed our existing ordinance. The numbers I used to show that in my report, I used the numbers that he presented. So my calculation was, I said, okay, I'll accept it's 70 decibels. My measurements were 55. I said, okay, let's use your 70. The part that's missing there is the ordinance is not measured outside. The ordinance is measured inside a residential house. When you go into a house from outside, that decibel value drops 20 decibels. And so at 70 decibels at 100 feet, you go in the house at 70, reading is 50. And so our ordinance, forget the evening ordinance, I'm not playing in night hours. Night hours are 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. 7 a.m. to 10 at night, our ordinance in this city is 65 decibels measured 5 feet off of the wall in which you're pointed toward the noise. Okay? So the readings are going to be well within the ordinance. So it's not a question of is it louder than whatever. It's whether it's in the ordinance or not. So it meets the ordinance. Okay? So noise is well within the ordinance. Let's talk about lighting. Do you guys know there is no ordinance for residential property owners in Poquoson on lighting? There is not an ordinance. You can put all the lights you want on your personal property. You want to confirm that? You can confirm that. I've already confirmed that. I couldn't find it in the write-up, so I asked Mr. Canella, help me out, I can't find the ordinance. He said, there is not an ordinance. So I'm within the ordinance. And if you compare it to the light that's at the end of the street, that light is giving off more than my proposed design. My proposed design is right on top of my court, not leaving the court, not leaving the property. And it's presented by Mr. Small as if it's going to be on all the time. It's only on during play. So during the evenings that I decide to play, it's going to be on for a couple hours. It's not on all the time. So take noise off the table, take lighting off the table, property value, controversial, but no concrete evidence along those lines. So let's get back to, okay, maybe it's not those ordinances, but is it my front yard? It is my front yard because it's in the front of my house. But if you went down there at all, you drive down Rochambeau Drive, you can't see the area that I'm proposing to put this thing. It is covered by everything. And the reason I said I will put additional bushes in front, because the first meeting, he spent a lot of time making a big deal out of seeing a little bit of sand behind the bushes. So it's like, okay, I'll address that. I'll put bushes in front of that, make that go away. So I showed you a picture of what that looks like. And the last thing I want to say is he does make a big deal out of noise. So it was interesting that one day I decided to play pickleball in my driveway. And guess what? Anybody can play pickleball in their driveway. There's nothing against, no rules against playing pickleball in your house or on your driveway. My wife and I were playing. I called my neighbor up, Johnny Mercer, and said, "Hey Johnny, I'm playing pickleball in my front yard, on my driveway. Tell me if you can hear it in your house." And he said, "I can't hear it while I'm in the house, standing right at the door." So I met with Mr. Small and I met with Perez's together. And I asked them both, I said, "I was playing pickleball yesterday afternoon in the driveway. Did you guys hear me playing?" Both of them admitted they did not hear me playing. And Mr. Small says, "Well, I wasn't home." I said, "Yes, you were. I confirmed you were home. And you were in your house." And so, you know, just saying, noise is not an issue. And then lastly, the only last point that's different that we didn't talk about before was there are 5,000 residential homes in Poquoson. Of 5,000, there's about 10% that are corner lots. Two intersecting streets, a corner lot. 500 of those residents today of corner lots, as well as any resident Poquoson, can pour a concrete slab in their backyard and play pickleball. If you look at, I gave you some samples of those corner lots, 6 of them. I mean, there's, like I said, you can ride around and see 500. Not only some of those, but even some of the backyards in our corner lots are way more accessible visually than my proposed location. And they can put one in today without coming to this board and saying, "Can I do it?" And my point there is they're not obscured from visual as my piece of property that I'm proposing. So let's take pickleball off the trial. Let's just consider, is my piece of property more like someone's side or backyard that's allowed to do it today? And I think it's hard to say no to that. Like I said, I gave you some examples, but there's 500 of them out there. I believe that's all I wanted to cover. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak?
Shaw, also of 8 Rochambeau Drive. I have a little bit of a different perspective than my husband does, so I wanted to take an opportunity to speak. First of all, It's been very disheartening to be going through this process. We've been at our home for 20 years and had no idea that by buying the property at the end of a dead-end street, it was going to create unhappiness from the other neighbors on Rochambeau Drive. Some of our neighbors, you know, we only met as a course of this. We keep to ourselves, we're peaceful. So anyway, it's been disheartening, to say the least, to have the controversy stirred up over something that we thought was just a minor thing that we wanted to add to our property. Tried to be thoughtful and respectful. We've picked the most secluded area that we could choose to do it. But my side of it is not that I'm a pickleball aficionado or whatever. I don't live and die by pickleball. But what I do enjoy is the social side. And we've always been straight up, you know, we enjoy having people over. We do today. And we're going to continue to do that whether we build this court or not. Right now, we enjoy cookouts in the backyard, and we enjoy swimming and playing basketball and things like that. This is another activity that we wanted to be able to offer when our 13 family members are around and the grandchildren want to go play pickleball with grandma. We can go do that. There are other options. The Poquoson courts are beautiful. The York County courts are beautiful, and we have taken advantage of those. But we're not going to leave a family function and pile everybody in the car to go play pickleball. It's just, it's a casual thing, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. It's not going to generate a lot of traffic. We have friends and family come over now, and the friends and family will continue to come over whether we have a pickleball court or not. The whole concept that this one pickleball court could ruin the aesthetic of Valmore Estates. There's 30 people in Valmore Estates alone that could build one today without coming before all of y'all to request permission. One of those people is Mrs. Small's neighbor. Her backyard is beside their backyard, and she could have a pickleball court in it today without any conversation. So we feel like our property is obscured. There's no curb in front of our front yard. The only intersection with Rochambeau Drive is that driveway, and you can barely see the house, let alone the court that we're proposing. So just to reiterate that this is a casual thing. It's private play with family and friends. We're not putting out to Poquoson 411 that everybody can come and play at our house. I mean, it's for personal enjoyment. We have a history of living in our home quietly, safely. The one thing I did want to point out is, like Greg said, we are able to play on our driveway, and we have played on our driveway. It's kind of annoying because the balls like to roll into the ditch, but it's also a safety hazard. So as we're running for the ball to get a ball, there are swales in the driveway for drainage, and you can trip over those. So we'd really rather not expose our family and friends to a trip hazard if we choose to stripe the driveway and play there. So it's wide open. That area is wide open to every neighbor, where the area that we chose, you can't even see the neighbors while you're standing in that area. So we felt like it was a thoughtful, respectful location, and that it would not create the controversy that it has. So we fully intend to abide by all ordinances, including the noise ordinance, and I think we've proven that that's possible, and just respectfully request that you recommend approval for our CUP. Thank you.
Else like to speak?
Could I just address a couple of points from Mrs. Shaw?
You had an opportunity to speak, so, okay,
I just thought I'd ask.
okay.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else wishes to speak, we're going to close the audience for visitors at this time and transition into reconsideration of a conditional use permit application by Greg Shaw. I wanted to talk about this a little bit and sort of set the stage. Thomas and staff and everybody here tonight have done a fantastic job supplying us with information to read and prepare ahead of this. The two different regulations or different conditions per se are going to be the painting of the pickleball court to a certain color that you would not be able to see a pickleball court, and planting extra shrubs. I had a conversation with Mr. Armentrout. He is not here this evening, and this is not part of the official vote or record or anything of that nature. But I did ask if I could share in his absence what his thought process was about this. And he stands by our previous decision that we made at last month's public hearing, as well as I do. I've had multiple conversations with Mayor Hux, and I appreciate his thoughtful dialogue with me, as well as Mr. Armentrout's. But the residential district RS per the Poquoson City Code talks about low-density, single-family residential areas. They are designed to stabilize, protect, and promote this type of development. It is a suitable environment for families who desire quiet, spacious home nights with the amenities of suburban living without fear of encroachment of dissimilar uses. And while I certainly am all for someone's right to property, I cannot support this application. I know that one of the read-aheads was citing Old Port Cove in York County. I don't know if you all are familiar with that area or where that is at. Where this is at is in an area that is consistent with their clubhouse, their pools, their things of that nature. It's an essential area. It is not in a front yard. So with that being said, as we're talking apples to apples, that certainly to me is not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. So again, my question, I'd love to hear your comments. We have a couple options on the table. What you all would like to do with regard to this, whether we stick with the original 6-0 vote as we did last month, whether we take another vote tonight, or whether we postpone this to a future meeting of Planning Commission when the two other members are here. But again, with Mr. Armentrout, he did share that with me. He is traveling at this time. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are regarding this. Isinger?
I'm kind of a little torn between. We are here to help certainly officiate how growth takes place and how we kind of regulate certain things so that we keep the aesthetics and setting. Having that piece that you spoke about, and the other side is it's certainly I don't really want to, you don't really want to set people back from certain things that they want to do as a family or, that part you always want, wherever you can. I am kind of torn between the two.
I'd like to speak first to just let everyone know that I see both sides of this. Obviously, it's certainly a shade of gray. I wanted to speak to one of Mr. Shaw's comments about being able, some other properties being able to build a court. I think he mentioned, I think the way you phrase it is they can pour a slab, which is true. I think when you go to the extent anywhere in this, I went through the city ordinances today looking for, in that zoning, RS zoning, where it's, if there's any permissible items related to sport courts, and didn't find anything. At which point, I also called Thomas and said, am I just missing it? And he said, no, you're not missing it, there's nothing there. So I have a feeling, my expectation is that if someone else tried to build a full-size sports court in their side yard or their front yard, it certainly would wind up in front of us. And staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think in any way I don't think that's the case. I think in general, the city's stance on that is that we want to prohibit that in front and side yards. So, and it's definitely not permissible by the ordinances. So I think, I know that sometimes those in the backyard get approved administratively, and I think those are cases that are non-contentious, I would say. This is definitely not one of those cases, which is why it's sitting in front of us today. So I think because it's not permissible by ordinance, and there is so much contentiousness around it, I think my opinion would be to stick with our original decision, which was to not approve this application. Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to clarify, you do have an approval resolution in your packet and a denial. And because of City Council's, the addition of the two conditions that the applicant offered, you will have to take an affirmative vote on one of those resolutions tonight. It can be recommending denial again, it could be recommending approval, but those two resolutions are in your packet with the two new conditions attached.
I really wish that everybody could be made happy by this, but it just looks like the Planning Commission called it right the first time based on ordinances, and that two additional conditions for the conditional don't really impact that consideration at all. I hope that the neighborhood can after this, but that's really up to.
I would like to start and just recognize the amount of work and time that both parties put into this, Mr. Small and Mr. Shaw. I sure have learned a lot through the past several months in this topic. My viewpoint on this, it remains the same as it did earlier with a denial. But I did want to share that I value Mr. and Mrs. Shaw's desire to spend time with their family, recreate, enjoy activities such as pickleball or basketball or the swimming pool. So I do understand that, and I have played pickleball casually, and I've played a lot of other sports, and they are fun and enjoyable and important to all of us. But as mentioned before with other commissioners here, with the ordinance and location, I stick by with a denial.
That being said, we have, as Thomas highlighted, we have two items up. We have an application or an item to approve the application or to deny the application. Do I have a motion for either of those for City Council, since the two additional conditions were added to that?
Well, certainly since the way that the conversation is, I do believe that we're all on the same page, so I would make a motion that we deny the application.
Do we have a second?
Just to be clear, I think we're adopting Resolution B, which is for denial. Is that the right way to do that?
Denial.
Right.
Okay. Would you Can we make a friendly amendment to your motion that we're adopting Resolution B to recommend denial?
Yeah. I make a motion that we're adopting Resolution B for
And I second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Peterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Hirsch.
Aye.
Commissioner Yeager.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Geisinger.
Aye.
Chairwoman Shaw.
Aye.
The recommendation is denied.
Thank you. And thank you all again. I appreciate all of the work that each one of you have done. And I, more importantly, appreciate the fact that you got involved with the process. That's very commendable, and I wish you nothing but the best. I really do. Thank you for coming out tonight.
I am the speaker when I would always be appreciative of your time and consideration. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on. And the second new business item is the initiation of amendment to Section 1.7 conditional use permits.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of background. The Planning Commission is certainly aware that we've had some conditional uses, particularly of late, that have taken up a lot of time. That's not to say that they're the only ones. We've certainly had some in the past that took a while as well. But coming out of, I guess, this latter batch, if you will, the City Council has expressed its desire to classify these applications so that in the future, all required information is provided well before a public hearing deadline for materials submitted for the Planning Commission public hearing. As such, please note the language referring to it officially submitted in Section 1-7B. I've also got some options that I gave to the Planning Commission as well, and I'll capture those as we move along. This is going to be true for all of the options. Conditional use permits, this is proposed language now. Conditional use permits shall be considered as either minor or major. The difference being generally that a major conditional use permit involves a new building to be constructed or requires approval by the Architectural Review Board for a new building or an exterior refurbishment of an existing building, or a traffic study is required per Section 1-7C, or if there are unique impacts concerning noise, dust, and or odor requiring certified professional assessment and/or environmental concerns as determined by the zoning administrator. An example of that from recent times might be sound, from a, regardless of what the use might be. So what this would do is divide conditional use permits as major and minor depending on the requirements for the contemplated use. The new language to be included at the beginning of Section 1-7B, proposed 1, would be the important part being application for conditional use permit as required by any provision of this ordinance shall be made to the City Council and filed with the zoning administrator. No change there. The application shall not be deemed as officially submitted by the zoning administrator until all required information is provided. Once deemed officially submitted and not before, the application shall be advertised for public hearing. So what happens here is that you got to have a complete application before we're ever ready to go for a public hearing. Now, as part of the ordinance, if depending on what the Planning Commission does tonight or when it is advertised for a hearing, I will have some forms that will mention things such as a concept layout plan, those types of things that will help us to inform what the impacts of a new building might be. So that's true in all the options that you got. Several additional options are presented for Planning Commission recommendation. And I will summarize those. You've got option one, which I think is one of your handouts, would restrict the eligibility for future CUP applications to commercial zoning districts only, except for properties where your CUP has been granted in the past, such as, well, Mr. Hanbury has a sign business down on Church Street that was approved by the conditional use permit. The restaurant 185, I think a conditional use permit was granted in the past for that. So those are the properties that we're talking about. This would address properties in residential districts where CUP has been granted in the past, but would effectively now allow no future CUPs in non-commercial zoning districts. Eliminates, well, I think this is basically regurgitation of the first bullet point, but eliminates additional commercial CUP uses on non-commercial properties, might constitute a major CUP in the proposal. Depending on, how the Planning Commission feels, we can, one thing that occurs to me is option one could be limited to minor CUPs. But in any case, this is the most restrictive option that we have. Option number two is basically we leave it the way it is, which we can anticipate further CUP applications for non-commercially zoned properties. Pickleball court, which we just heard about, among other uses, major and minor CUPs, would still be eligible for a CUP application. And of course, this is the least restrictive option. If I can editorialize just a little bit, in my experience, I've never run up against a zoning ordinance like what we have, that essentially just opens up everything for a conditional use permit, unless it's prohibited. It's rather unique, I would say, to the city. Option three is kind of a middle ground option. It would limit major CUPs to commercial districts where you have a new building or a concept layout plan or architectural review board approval. But minor CUPs could still be applied for anywhere. That would allow for some commercial use in non-commercial districts, unless the requirements for major CUPs were applicable. A pickleball court, among other uses, would still be eligible for a CUP application. That says nothing about whether it would get approved or not, but it is open for a CUP application. And again, as I stated, this is sort of the middle ground option. So those are the three options that I presented, and quite frankly, could use the Planning Commission's help on choosing which option to go with.
Questions?
Just when I was reading over this, I think that, it just kind of struck me. I think that the ability to actually apply for something like a pickleball court in your whatever, because of a lot of the way that the properties sit. I know mine's kind of unique, the way that my property sits. My lane runs down and it goes into the side of my house. So a lot of things, if we were just talking, would have to apply for, might need a CUP or whatever. Just for, different areas. So I think that part of it, having that still in there and us being able to kind of take it on a case-by-case basis, I kind of like that part of it because, even not that we would have moved in that direction, but had everybody been in favor of this pickleball court and this property or whatever, then who knows how that might have swayed things or changed, so.
Sure.
Anyway,
So you like this version?
I do kind of
Yeah.
like the third option, kind of the middle ground.
I agree.
As I was looking at the ordinance today, I also noticed that there's an awful lot of things that are not either explicitly permitted or prohibited. So that does leave a lot of gray area for interpretation, and I think having the Planning Commission consider these things does have value.
Madam Madam Chairman, I would point out, not having done any legal research, I would have a significant problem with option number one, simply because the only remedy available is a conditional use permit. So if the use is not provided for, then you're taking away the only possible remedy that a citizen could have, and they would end up with only a court remedy. I don't think that's where we want to be.
No.
I'm certainly willing to do some research and dig into it further if you want to consider option one, but I would, right now, off the cuff, reading it here, looking at it a couple of days ago when the package came through, I would have a problem with option one.
I'm unclear how the differentiate between major and minor is that helpful for all trouble? And I'm also curious if commonly designated that way in other areas.
Well, as far as your question about other areas, I don't know that I've really got a great answer for that right now. But this was something that arose out of the city council's concern that they were not getting all the information that they needed to make an informed decision on an application, particularly for brand new use, prior to the public hearing. There's a lot of deficiencies on a current CUP application that we have ongoing that the council has since directed that person to correct. But it could have been handled in advance, and that's what this is an attempt to do.
Agree that the preparation of materials for the submission is really part of it, and it might be simpler to go after updating the requirements, but this is me with only a casual understanding of all the plumbing and all the things that are below the water.
Sure. Well, I think we've done a good job of differentiating between major and minor and what's considered officially submitted. But if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that the options right now, you may feel better with what we've got now.
I'm not seeing it as being a large help over what we have now. I live and learn, so I'm ready to learn more about it.
You can, if you want.
I just want to chime in a second. The last time we had this conversation, my role was a little different, but the thought then, when I was on council, so you can blame this on me if you want to, we then kind of had the same idea. We want to give people the ability to apply for things that's not specifically permitted, and we'll consider it case by case. So that thought of leaving it kind of open-ended, you can apply for anything, anywhere, has been our policy and practice probably since we've been a town. So I think tonight, the first question that we're asking the Planning Commission to answer is to initiate amendment. Do we think we need to change the process, period? We don't have to have a consensus tonight on, yep, we want option two. This is very much a work in progress, something we can talk about over the course of multiple meetings. It's something council has recognized may need a change. The biggest, though, in determining if something is major or minor, tonight's application, it's really a one-off application. It's tough. It has a lot more impact on a few residential pieces of property and a few citizens, whereas the indoor gun range has an impact on the city at large. And that's kind of where we want to differentiate. Okay, what this one person wants to do in their 1 yard may be a minor consideration. Here are the things that you need to include in your application. But if you're going to develop a multi-acre commercial piece of property, something that's not permitted in the code, then there are certain things we want to see.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what we're getting at in a way to
Right.
say, okay, this is a minor CUP, here's what we need from you. This is a major CUP, here's what we need from you. And you have the three options, the one obviously being the most restrictive, but, you know, if something is specifically prohibited, then we can't bring you, someone cannot apply for a conditional use permit for something that is specifically prohibited. What they can do is ask you to change the city code and either make it permitted or not specifically prohibited. The same could be true if we went option, but the only way, I'm piggybacking on the attorney's comments, with option one, the only way someone could apply for a CUP on their residential piece of property, i.e. this pick, would be if they came to you and said, hey, here's what I want to do, and I'm asking that you change the code
Right.
to make a regulation-sized sports court a permitted use in the front yard. So you would still have the ability to consider someone's desire, I would say, but it wouldn't come to you in the form of conditional use permit.
I actually I do think several things do recommend themselves with option 3, is we do have the minor CUPs that we could consider in all districts. But if you're going to do something, commercial, build a new building or something like that, that needs to be in a commercial district. Whether it's research and development, village commercial, B2, B1, general commercial. But I mean, what's as far as, will it do any good? Sorry, I just lost my place here. I actually think it'll do real good in terms of being able to differentiate between what's a minor and what's a major, and what do we need as part of a major. I mean, to this very day, we're still waiting on materials for since Thomas mentioned it, I'll say the gunnery range. We're still waiting for materials. It's supposed to be here by September. We'll see. But wouldn't it have been a better idea to require that up front?
With that specific application, we were receiving stuff about 10 minutes before the hearing started. And again, you don't have time to ask questions and digest the material and all of that stuff, so it's a very good point.
Right.
Part of that too is, the language, while he's included, regarding an officially submitted application, that gives the zoning administrator, who is the city manager, currently designated as the zoning administrator, but whomever that may be in the future, whether it's the manager or not, to say, look, this is not officially submitted. It's not going before the planning commission until you meet the criteria that is right here in the code. So there's no more of this late submission. Well, I'm not required to submit those things. I'm not required to have this approval. And then, we run into can you share this with the board a day or 2 days or 20 minutes before the meeting? And not only have you not have time to see it or review it, but the public hasn't either. So, giving staff and the zoning administrator, the authority to make that determination really for your benefit, council's benefit, public benefit, and the applicant's benefit is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it also really helps that we don't continue to regurgitate the same thing over multiple meetings.
Right.
As well.
Also think you should consider adding to that if the applicant makes an amendment after the final plan request has been submitted, that to be automatically carried over to the next meeting, so you don't end up facing somebody standing up here and saying, you need to amend this, so we make you a proffer now, because we've got, these objections. So now you're shooting off the hip. I mean, you don't have it in writing, you have somebody verbally saying it. They are going to be changes to the application made by the applicant, that it needs to be written, it needs to be to you so that you can consider that
Yes.
before, not just sitting here when somebody did something 10 minutes. There should be an automatically carrying over that public hearing to your next meeting, so you can have a fair
Yeah, that-
review.
I agree with the city attorney on that one. And that's what we did with conditional zoning. We actually had a little clause in there. So we'll do something similar this time around that'll have that. That's what I meant by this part, the brackets here. I didn't explain it very well, but deadline for materials submitted to planning commission for public hearing. Basically, everything needs to be in here by the deadline for these, and we can make that clear, in the language. But that's what we expected in, not, 2 hours before the hearing or.
Well, and certainly for public noticing requirements in the
Yeah.
daily press, it
Oh, yeah.
needs to be submitted properly and
Absolutely.
accurately. So,
Yes. I agree.
I love the idea of making, having all the information submitted officially prior to moving forward, without a doubt. I do see advantages and disadvantages to several of the options, most notably 2 and 3.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of a variety of applications, and then I'm looking around the city here in a mental image of locations like the old seafood restaurant on Poquoson Avenue.
Yeah.
That may have been zoned in a certain way, and how that could change possibly, or what could be, if that was ever knocked down and something wanted to be rebuilt there. So I'm trying to look at a
Yeah, and
variety of
that is something we
angles.
thought about too.
Yeah, and then, of course, the corridor running towards NASA, exiting out towards towards the city of Hampton's going to change quite a bit here in the near future. So I'm kind of, really looking at those two options, 2 and 3. But I applaud the idea of officially submitting based on having all the information that's necessary to move forward. I think that is fantastic.
I think that's a tremendous step
Yeah.
forward, regardless of which
Yes,
which
and
option we go with.
So, without a doubt, I think that's going to help tremendously. That in itself will.
Yeah, I also agree that having the information up front is probably the most important thing we're talking about here. And categorizing things into major and minor, I also see the value in that after Thomas explained the thought process, and that you've got a major constructing a new building, a large new building or something, you're obviously going to require more information than if someone's doing a small addendum to a residential home. So it does make sense to me to categorize those things in some way. I think we'll need to figure that out, because I don't think you can just say a new building, because if someone builds a shed in their backyard, is that a new building? And all of a sudden, it's a major CUP. So I think we'll have to work some of that.
That's not, that wasn't the intent of what was written, but yeah.
I didn't think so, but we got to clarify that stuff, I think, somehow.
Yeah.
So Wally, just for clarification, what you're looking for from Planning Commission tonight is just to initiate that you do something and amend this section of the code, and you will bring us options back, correct?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So do we have consensus then that we want to do that and look at that and then let Wally come back to us?
I think on the city attorney's recommendation,
Yeah,
we'll probably
with
get rid
that.
of option 1.
Yeah?
I think I favor option 2, but with the addition of the major and minor categories that are appropriately categorized, and then making sure that all the information is submitted before it's posted, I think is a good idea too.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Now we move to
Madam
item.
Chair?
Yes.
We do need a
We need a motion?
motion
Thank you for
to
that.
initiate amendment.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to initiate an amendment.
I make a motion to initiate an amendment.
Second?
I'll second.
But I think the motion is to further consider an amendment to the conditional use permit process. I don't think it's sufficient just to say, other minutes, it should be a more definitive motion.
I make a motion to initiate an amendment for the further ongoing discussion for the
I'll second.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Hirsch?
Aye.
Commissioner Yeager?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Geisinger?
Aye.
Chairman Truck?
Aye.
Recommendation passes.
Thank you. Now we move to item G of our agenda, and that's communications and correspondence from staff and commissioners. I do have a couple of things, but I want to start off with our planning staff, community development.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have anything additional for you, and I don't want to steal Wiley's thunder, but, you know, the motion you just made is something we've needed to do corporately for a long time, and I had part of making that not happen for at least 4 years, so for that I apologize. But it's a step in the right direction, so I know we're anxious to bring you something back soon. That's all I have.
Thanks largely to Thomas's efforts before the city council last month. We did ordinance to amend height, and we did add in a provision for approval with conditions for ARB applications. So I certainly pushed the ball forward on that, and I think I'd already reported last month on the land open space development. That's really all I got.
So I have a couple of things. Mayor Hux, I had alluded to the fact earlier this evening that I had spoken to him on several different occasions, and some of our things that we've done and approved at Planning Commission, and what he wanted me to share with you all is his appreciation as well as council's appreciation of what we're doing here. He said it, you know, certainly shows hard work, and it's setting the city in a good way going forward. So he did want me to share that with you all, and I told him certainly at the next Planning Commission meeting I would share that. I also wanted to share that I also, you know, this is a lot of work, both for staff, for our applicants who are putting this stuff together, as well as you all giving of your time. And I understand that, and I just wanted to personally thank you. That's a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I think this Planning Commission is a good group that we have, and thank City Council for that. I will forego any additional comments for now. And if there's no additional business or anything else that you all would like to discuss, I'd like to hear a motion possibly to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded? I apologize. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Hirsch? Aye. Commissioner Yeager?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Geisinger?
Aye.
Chairwoman Scott?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 8:09.
Meeting adjourned.